Sometimes for people it can be hard to evangelize or share their testimony with someone, but it's really easy to share a post. Your church is creating content that can be shareable. You're actually empowering your congregation to be able to share the gospel. 1/3, 2/3. Why do I say that? Jared, is that some kind of rule? Yes. There is one camera angle that you need to get down pat. If you get this one shot down, you don't need any other cameras. You're not competing with their millions of dollars of budgeting. You're competing with a thumbnail and a title.
So recently I had the opportunity to teach a class at my university. That still sounds crazy to say out loud. But it all started almost a year ago when I began a research project looking at the churches with the largest social media presence because I wanted to learn what did they do differently that set them apart from everyone else. What I made was a paper that was way too long, but what I found was actually some really interesting insights that your church can start using today. I boiled it down into these 3 levels that will take your church from wherever it might be to a thriving online social media presence. So without further ado, let's get to class.
Today, I want to run through what I deem as the social media pyramid. Basically, I wanted to look at successful church social medias, compare them to not so successful church social medias, and see what we could learn. And I came up with pretty much a 3-stage or 3-step system to go from old country church social media to a top-of-the-line online presence. I think a lot of churches, some churches don't do it just because they simply don't care. Social media isn't a priority for them. They started live streaming during COVID, and they see it as just they're going to throw this online and leave it, and that's okay. But I also know some churches that don't have a great social media presence because they don't know how. And so for those churches, I kind of have a heart of saying, well, here's how you can do it. Here's what you can do to go from very standard, not doing much, to actually what is a top-of-the-line social media presence. So I wanted to pack pretty much everything I know into the next 30, 40 minutes and just give it to you guys so that when you have your own churches, when you're helping out in churches one day, you can say, hey, our church can improve our social media by doing this. Here's the next step. Here's the next thing that we can do. It all started with a study of the top 12 churches. It was an independent research project. I pretty much spent a semester studying the most successful churches by YouTube subscribers, so whoever had the most. Looking at what can we learn from what they're doing, how can we use it, because what's the point of learning anything if you don't use it and practically have something hands-on that you can do, and then does it even matter? Let's stop and look at this third question. Does it even matter? Does anybody know if they think they can guess a church that was in the top 12 for the largest social media presence by YouTube subscribers? Elevation, sure. Any other guesses? Joel Osteen?
Transformation Church?
Transformation Church. Any other guesses? Well, all 3 that you just named are right.
Oh, that's awesome.
And to me, I think that's a testament that it does matter. Because there are churches that are larger than the ones you just named, but the fact that you know who they are is a testament that they're utilizing social media effectively in a way that a lot of churches aren't. Does that make sense? Is that fair? So here's some other pros for social media, why it might be valuable for your church, just some things to consider, because like I said, some churches don't care. This is my argument of maybe you should care. Number 1, you can make your church stand out. This is, special in any church because people will be looking for what church they want to be a part of. What makes your church different? Well, you can have a great social media presence. 99% of churches don't. It is the same cut and dry, whatever, especially if you want to plan a church. Super valuable for you guys because let's say your first service has 50 people, right? The 50 people who come to your first service, they know what your church is like, they know the building, they know the culture, they know you guys. To the other 99.9% of the world population, your church exists to them for how you present it to be online. So I think it's a valuable thing to have a cultivated online presence for everyone else who's looking in on your church, because that's how they access you guys. You can disciple your congregation throughout the week. Gone are the days where people can only learn about Jesus on a Sunday morning, a Sunday night, and a Wednesday night. Now you can reach, who here has used social media this morning? Like half the class, you're an exception. Like half the class. And what if churches were utilizing the attention that social media already has on especially the younger generation? And what if we use that to, like I said, disciple them on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? It doesn't matter when, it doesn't matter where. You can advertise your church. Social media is a great way to advertise and get the name out, get your church out. You can reach people on their couch. You can scroll through any feed from anywhere. Evangelize and share the gospel message. I know for me personally, I can look at my statistics. Instagram is probably the easiest with this one. It says, out of your views, here's how many people follow you. What's up, boys? Out of your views, here's how many people follow you, and here's how many people don't follow you. And on Instagram, it's usually about 50-50. And if it gets more views, it's the more people who don't follow me that see it. Which means that people who see my content are mostly unfamiliar with me. They've never seen anything before. So it's a great way to reach people. Evangelize and share the gospel message, same thing. Appeal to younger generations. Having a good social media presence is going to be a lot more important for someone younger than it is for someone older. But I think a lot of us probably want to reach the younger generation, and this would be a great way to meet them on their level, to feel like or reach them in a way that they can understand. And then finally, all content is shareable. I thought this one was special because sometimes for people it can be hard to evangelize or share their testimony with someone. Like that can be really difficult to do, but it's really easy to share a post or to share a link or to share a video. I'm sure that all of us have done it on social media at some point. And so if your church is creating content that can be shareable, then in a way you're actually empowering your congregation to be able to share the gospel with their friends, which are, by the way, people usually local that could come to your church. Here's an example of a church, completely random. That's me. This is my church. This is Bethel Wesleyan Church. And I wanted to use them as an example because I think most churches look something like this. Have you ever seen a church YouTube page that looks somewhat similar to this? It's a bunch of, what do we see? Live streams. Here's the date. Maybe it has like whatever title they want to put. And I haven't touched this social media. Check back with this in a year and we'll see what it looks like. But I haven't touched this yet. So I want you to guess, if we were to try, without going over what the pyramid is, if we were to try to put this on the pyramid, where do you think it would fall, probably? Number one up top? Yeah. Any other guesses?
One for sure.
One for sure? Anyone else think one? One, probably. This one, it's in the ground. It's not even on the pyramid.
So there's no.
And so I want you to think about where your church might fall. As we go through the different stages and the different steps, the different levels, where do you think your church is? And what is something that might be able to improve on it? Because like I said, this is not like theoretical. This is literally the most practical, hands-on, here's what you can do that I can give you. So here's level one. We can just start going through it. Here's what you got to do to be a level one church. First off, post the sermon. And I mean just the sermon. What do you see in most churches? You see a live stream. Just post the sermon. When people are coming to your church, what you're competing with is the content that they can find everywhere else. So what they're looking for is probably the preaching. Churches already create, or a pastor already creates content every single week. It's their sermon. Let's package that in a way so that people can see it. So just post the sermon. Give it a title that is not the date that it was live streamed. And then also create a thumbnail. Does everyone know what a thumbnail is? When you scroll on YouTube, it's the picture that appears above the title. And so when people see a video, what are they greeted with? A title and a thumbnail.
Yeah. How do they create a thumbnail?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
I'll talk about that.
All right.
So let's start with posting the sermon. What do I mean by post the sermon? Take your live stream and cut everything out that's not preaching. So most live streams start off with a 5-minute countdown. How many people ever sat and watched a 5-minute countdown on their couch? Cut it out. We don't need it, okay? Worship. Cut it out. If people want to listen to worship online, they're probably just going to go to Elevation or Hillsong or whatever. They can do that. And sometimes worship sets from a normal church don't sound the best. They don't come across the best online. Even if they're great in person, it's a much different mixing online. Yeah. And then announcements, cut it out. Anything else that you have, cut it out, just post the sermon. Now, you might have some backlash from some people. That's Lisa. Lisa is an older lady. She's been attending the church for 60 years, since she was a kid. And she was diagnosed with an illness. This is just a made-up story. But she can't come to the church. For one reason or another. She's immobile, she's sick, she can't come to the church. And she wants to feel like she's a part of the church community. She's going to tell you, I want to see more than just the sermon. I want to see I'm going to sit there for the 5-minute countdown. Okay, Lisa, put down the frying pan. I hear you. There's some other groups of people who might want to see more than just the sermon. I can think of children's workers who are working. They're still like, I want to, in the announcements, how to worship go today, all that stuff. Caleb, can you think of another group of people who might want to watch the whole live stream?
The people that played in the
Worship set. I've been sitting next to Caleb a few times, and I've seen him. You go back and you watch a live for what? To see was our timing good? Was the quality right? Yeah. Those kind of things. Yeah. So for those people, we don't forget about them. Here's a live Wesleyan church. This one, I just want to point out something. Whenever you post a live stream to your church, you get this thing here called the live tab. This live tab is all of your past live streams. So the people like Lisa who want to see the live stream, or your worship leaders, or your kids ministry workers, they can find it in this live tab. It's not, we kind of want to hide it, but it's not unaccessible, right? But this home page, this home tab, I want it all to be content that's appealing for anyone who's just looking to consume, which that's what people are looking for when they come to your YouTube channel. So this right here, this is a live stream. By the way, I clicked on it. It starts with an 8-minute countdown. I sat through all 8 minutes. Thank you very much. Just kidding. No, I didn't. But this, I love this, by the way. We'll get to that in a little bit later. This is just an extra teaching from Bob Black. Awesome. If your church is doing extra teachings, post that. That's content that you can put online. But yeah, this would be much better if it was a little more cleaned up. If you had a designated thumbnail, we'll talk about what that looks like and how to do that. And then if you had a title. So let's talk about the title. How to title a sermon. God wants you to be rich. Watch this video to find out how, right? That's a great title. It's going to get you clicks, but it's probably not the kind of brand that you want to build. We don't want to go Joel Osteen on us, right? So, what do you want to title your sermon? Make it your sermon title. It's super easy. It's super safe. It's a lot better than 11-08-2024, right? Or November 11, whatever. Just make it your sermon title. What a lot of big churches do. Let's see. Dr. Wilson, what was the title of the last sermon you preached? Do you remember?
Oh, the Song of the Sea.
Okay, so if a larger church, or a church, and the ones that I studied, if they were to post that, the YouTube title would be The Song of the Sea with that vertical line, Pastor Mark Wilson. That's what it would say. That is the easiest, that's the safest, that's the most standard, and it works. That's why churches use it. Just do that. If for some reason your sermon title is super boring, or you just don't want to use it, or just want to make a good YouTube title, okay, there's some exceptions, but here's some other ideas if you didn't want to use your sermon title. You can make an intriguing question. What was the one that the United Methodist guy, why did Jesus ask so many questions? That works. Intriguing question from his message. That can work as YouTube title. Maybe a 1-sentence synopsis. A deep dive into Daniel chapter 1. It says what the video is about. It works. It's okay. I don't love it, but it works. It's better than 11-08-24. Answer a relevant question. How to hear Jesus in a hurricane. Maybe a little too on the nose, but something that's that people want to click on, or they want to have an answer. And then you can use a quote from the sermon. If you're going to use a quote, it has to be something that's punchy, impactful, condensed. It can't be, you rambling on. It has to be something quick. And something that it would make people want to click. All these work if you want to use them. Easiest, just go with the sermon title. That works just fine. Let's talk about a thumbnail. So, what is a thumbnail? Not that. A thumbnail, like I said, that's the picture that shows up above your YouTube thing. This, fun fact, is an AI-generated image of a thumbnail that I found. Thank you, Google Slideshow, for generating that for me. But let's talk about what makes a good thumbnail. This is not a good thumbnail. That's a bad thumbnail. The reason I put this on here is because whenever you post a YouTube video of any kind, it gives a thumbnail to you. It makes a thumbnail for you. Where does it get it from? It takes a random freeze frame from your video. It takes a random picture from your video and it puts it out there. that can be bad in some situations. You could be halfway through talking, you could be doing whatever. Probably not best to just rely on that. So how do we have a good thumbnail? I have a system, or I made up a system. And it originally was red, yellow, and green, but then I realized I didn't really like the yellow one either, so I made it red, orange, and green, because I don't think either of them are very good. This one, you've probably seen this before. This is a sermon series graphic used as a thumbnail. So a lot of churches, they don't have a thumbnail artist. They have someone who makes sermon series graphics for them. And so they'll take that graphic and they'll use it as the thumbnail. This works. It's probably better than a freeze frame, although, hey, that's a pretty good picture. That's what YouTube gave us. But I still don't love it as much as this. This is an example that I made. It's super simple, and there's two things I want you to realize. Actually, let me go ahead and draw it. Two things to realize. So if this is your picture right here, I want you to split it into 1/3 and 2/3. This is probably not ideal, but my proportions might be off. Split it into 1/3 and 2/3. 1/3 should be a picture of your preacher, like this.
It's gorgeous.
And then the other 2/3 should be text, ideally big and bold. There we go. There we go. Text. 1/3, 2/3. And why do I say that? Why do I say that? Jared, is that some kind of rule? Yes. How many of you recognize someone on this page? What do they look like? 1/3, 2/3, 1/3, 2/3. Elevation, I think that their thumbnails are the best. And, by the way, they're the biggest out of anyone on this list. Is that a coincidence? No. Why? Because when someone is looking for a YouTube video, what are they given? A title and a thumbnail, that's it. So when you see these things, and you say, well, my church can't compete, you're not competing with their millions of dollars of budgeting. You're not competing with all the time in a week that they have to prep a sermon. On social media, you're competing with a thumbnail and a title.
Okay, sorry, I got a little interrupted by the lawn care team, which is doing an amazing job outside. They were just a little noisy. So let me fill you in on what I was trying to say at this point in class, because I feel like it was really important. On social media, especially a YouTube feed that's showing you all these videos, you're not competing with the millions of dollars of budget behind them. You're just competing with a title and a thumbnail, which means a thumbnail is vitally important. It's best to make your text as big and as bold as possible, because whenever you're scrolling on a phone, the thumbnails will be like this tiny, which also means that you're going to want to make sure that your colors pop, like using white text on a dark background, which is what most churches do. Now, you might be thinking it's probably hard to make a thumbnail that looks like the professional ones that all the other churches do. And so I told my class, who wants to be a thumbnail model? And so I had somebody raise their hand, not a thumbnail, I mean a preaching thumbnail model. And so I had someone raise their hand. I told them to come to the front of class. And I said, I want someone to set a timer from when I take the photo to when I'm done making the thumbnail. So I framed up my shot so that my speaker was in the left 1/3, and so that I had 2/3 on the right side free for text. And I took the photo. I took my photo into a photo editor. Something like Canva would work just fine for this. And then I cropped it to be a 16:9 aspect ratio. And then all I did was take some bold text, drag it into the right, and save. Here's what that thumbnail looked like. Now you might be thinking, Jared, that doesn't look like super amazing and super professional. Well, it took me 1 minute and 4 seconds, which means if you spend 10 minutes, 5 minutes on a thumbnail, you can make your church's thumbnail look amazing every single week, much better than a freeze frame or some kind of a sermon series graphic. The only point I was trying to make in class is it's way simpler than you think to make a thumbnail that looks amazing. And it'll only look more and more amazing and get even easier the more practice that you have doing it. Okay, let's go back to class.
And then we're done with level 1. Congratulations. If you're doing level 1, like I said before, in a way, like, you are probably above, I want to say 90% of churches, but I promise you, not many churches are doing this. So you're probably in the 95 percentile range and above. If you're just doing those 3 things, and you're going up and up if you're doing them well. It doesn't take too long to learn how to do them well. So let's talk about step 2. This is the shorts and the reels. Ooh, my favorite. And then also I have this optional. The main part is the shorts and reels. And we're going to talk about what that looks like. But then in step 2, here's where I would like for any church to start being creative, be personal, establish like, here's our church culture online. And you can do that through making pastoral devotionals or like Alive, post Bob Black's. When's it? Sunday night teachings? Sunday school teachings? Yeah, that's awesome. Do that. Any extra teaching you have, post those. Extra teachings, like I said, pastoral devotionals. You can do that short form, less than 1 minute, 5 minutes, doesn't matter, whatever. Church announcements. Chapel Worship does a great job with church announcements. They're like, you hop on the trends, they're fun, they're cool. I really like them. You can do that with your church. That would be kind of in this second level here. Because once we've gotten down the sermon, posting the long form sermon, that's like the bread and butter of a church. All this stuff is extra, especially these shorts and reels is definitely the most important part. So let's talk about that. What are shorts and reels? No, not these shorts and reels. Okay, so here's some pros. That's good. Okay. So shorts are the most universal form of content. What do I mean? Well, you can find shorts on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, X, or Twitter. Pretty much any social media has the vertical less than 60-second video built into it. Why? Because it's effective in keeping people on their app, so they all want to have it. Second thing, 10x more reach. I put anecdotal because this is just my experience. If I post a 30-minute sermon, it might get in the tens of views. If I post a 60-second short, it might get in the hundreds of views. Or if it's good, 1,000. Add some music, we're in 2,000, right? You can way easier, just reach a lot more people with short form content. It can be a gateway to a longer video. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like a short video and you're like, yeah, I want to watch the whole thing because this was intriguing, right? Yeah. And that works great for sermons because in your 30-minute sermon, you might be able to get like 3 60-second clips that are kind of like the mini lessons within the larger picture, right? And those mini lessons can be like, oh, I like this guy's preaching. Oh, I like this guy's point. Oh, this resonates with what I'm going through right now. I'm going to watch the whole thing. Can be a great gateway for that. And you can also reach a new audience. I think I talked about that earlier with Instagram, how like it was 50-50 split. These people follow me, these people don't. And the more views you get, that's just more people who don't follow you that are starting to see your video. It's not all perfect though. And for some churches, it might not be worth the time investment because this is actually probably more of a time investment. The 60 seconds, more time investment than the 30-minute video. But the thing is, they can be shallow and forgettable. Out of half the people who scrolled this morning, how many of you guys remember everything that you saw when you were scrolling? No one. Yeah, you can be scrolling. I saw this one post. It was like, stop scrolling. Do you remember what the video was like 5 TikToks ago? And I'm like, I have no clue, right? It can be forgettable. And that's just the reality of it. But I think it's worth it because if you reach 1,000 people, even if it only resonates with a small percentage, that's still a lot of people, right? Even if it resonates with one person, it just resonated with one person, right? So I think it's worth it. A sermon clip must-haves. So if you have your sermon down, I think the next thing you get down is your sermon clip. It has to be cropped vertically. A lot of people, or pretty much every church, I've never seen a film church vertically. Every church, they film, it's horizontal. All you have to do is take it and crop it to be vertical. Short, 15 to 90 seconds. I probably could have changed this. I think 15 seconds is just too short. Like, it's really hard to make a point in 15 seconds, especially if it's a sermon. You're usually a little more long-winded to make a point, as you should be. You need to keep people engaged. 15 is probably too short. I would keep it like 45 to 60 is ideal, and I would have said 60 is the max. But as of a few days ago, YouTube actually just announced that shorts can now be up to 3 minutes long. Why? Because platforms are noticing that short-form content, if they make it longer, it actually keeps people on the platform for longer. So they're starting to increase. You can post longer than 60 seconds. YouTube just did that as of yesterday. They made that update. So anywhere from 15, 90 seconds, that works. 45 to 60 is probably your sweet spot. You might have to like cut some things out or whatever you have to do to make sure that it has a point. Let it be engaging. You don't want it to be the part of your sermon where you're going, the other day I was out fishing and you wouldn't believe how bad that weather was, right? That's probably not the best if you're kind of talking a little monotone, a little slow. You want it to be like, and then God called Moses, and Moses replied, God, who am I to do this? And God said what? In verse 12, let's look at the text. God said, I will be with you, right? Has to be a part of the sermon where there's some emotion, usually a little faster speaking. So that's going to keep them hooked. And if you want it to be more engaging, add captions to it. There's a lot of free online tools. You can just upload the video, add captions to it, automatically makes any short form video more engaging, which will help more people watch it for longer, which then the algorithm says people like this and it shows more people. So story structure has to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like I said, it has to be its own complete lesson within the short, which can be hard to do. But yeah, beginning has to be some kind of a hook. Like usually if you're starting off a story, that's a great hook because people, as soon as you start off a story, people are listening, right? The same thing with short form content. It can be, I spent 10 years as a Christian and I never knew this before. There's a hook, right? People are like, what did you not learn before? Anything like that. Your middle, that's where you pack all your content in. And what it's leading up to is the end, which is your power punchline. Maybe it's a question, maybe it's whatever. That's probably what people are going to take with them. So be careful what's your last sentence in the room. And if you're doing that, great. You just finished level 2. And if you're doing that, then I guarantee you are above 98% of churches. Because like I said, no one is utilizing social media to the extent that they could be. So you are already in a different stratosphere of churches. And it's really easy to get there because no one else is doing it. So level 3, the reason I structured it this way is because level 1 and level 2, you can do this alone. I do this alone. This is exactly what I do. And I don't have like a tech team or volunteers. I don't have any of that. Step 3 is where it gets different. This is where you will need some help and maybe some investment. We're going to talk about cameras. We're going to talk about you need someone to operate the camera. You can't do this part alone. If you just do steps 1 and 2, like I said, you're above 98% of churches. I guarantee your online presence will grow. I guarantee that you're going to impress a lot of people, especially those in your local community if they stumble upon it, because no other church is doing this. But if you want to get to that step 3, to actually compete with these larger churches, then this is what that would look like. And really it's just one thing. One most important thing, and that is your camera angle. There is one camera angle that you need to get down pat. If you get this down, if you get this one shot down, I would even argue you don't need any other cameras. You don't need anything else if you get this one shot down. You can add extra angles, and we'll talk about what that looks like. But this is the most important shot. Here's what it looks like, or here's what it's called. It's a medium shot. So let's say that this is your sanctuary. Up here is your stage, and up here is all your chairs and stuff, whatever, right? Okay, so you preach right here, and this is your pulpit. Where do you want to put the camera? Right here, ideally. You want to put it straight in front of you. If you can, you want it to be eye level. This camera with me is kind of almost eye level. If it's slightly above, if it's slightly below, that's okay. But as close as you can to eye level, if it's slightly to the left, if it's slightly to the right, that's okay. But as close as you can to eye level and straight on from you, that is the best camera angle that you can have. It's called a medium shot, and then the camera pans to follow movement. Lydia, if you want to demonstrate. So when you're preaching, it's best to not stand like this for a half hour. So when you're preaching, you're going to want to move to the left, and then watch the camera. It's going to follow me as I move, and I'm going to move over here to my right, and it's going to follow me. So you need someone to man the camera to have that. Why is that so important? Because you've seen it before, everywhere. That's what it looks like. It's called a medium shot. It's usually filmed right here to right here-ish, and it follows them as they move. I went back and I watched the elevation service. They were on this shot for 30 seconds straight. cut away to 2 different shots in the 10 seconds that followed, boom, back to this shot for 30 seconds. 90% of their entire sermon was this shot right here. So if you get this down, you can add other camera angles, it's going to enhance the quality, but if you get this down, that's the most important thing. And honestly, it's not that hard. I think that's kind of what I'm hoping to show is all of this. It's really not that hard. Most churches just don't do it. Medium shot, like I said, get this down, you're set, you're gold, you're solid. If you want to do more, here are some ideas. You could have a full shot. Here's an example of what that looks like. Whole stage, head to toe. You've probably seen this shot before as well. If you want to have a handheld shot, it's it's not shaky on accident. If you've ever seen a sermon, it's like, why is the camera shaking? It looks more cinematic. It has a different appeal to it, has a different look to it. And it helps re-engage someone's attention whenever you cut to a different angle. So having that handheld, you just give a teenager a camera and say, go film my sermon from the bottom of the stage. And then you go like this. Perfect, great. Cut to them every, 30 seconds, right? And just have that. Perfect, great. Give that extra angle. A 90-degree side shot. What do I mean by that? Actually, let me go and draw all these. So, whoa.
Whoa.
Oh boy.
I'll bring that.
So let's see, a 90-degree side shot would be when you put your camera right here. So it's 90 degrees away from you. Is that 90 degrees for my math people? I was just guessing. A handheld shaky shot, usually that's best when it's kind of close to the stage and kind of looking up at you. You can put that right here, somewhere around here. That's kind of filming you like that. And then the last one, a dolly shot. Does anybody know what a dolly is when filming? Yeah? So a dolly is basically, most dollies look something like this. They'll have 2 metal bars that go across, and then a camera rig that'll slide across it, right, Caleb? Yeah, a camera rig that'll slide across it. Gives that extra element of movement. And so a dolly shot, you can really put anywhere. Probably best to put it something like right here, so it's kind of angled in at you, and the camera will move from left to right the entire time. And you can cut to that occasionally. So like I said, the most important shot is your medium shot. Get this down, you're set, you're golden. If you want to do extra angles, here are just some ideas. My next one would probably be a full shot that looks like this, and then my one after that would probably be the 90-degree shot. That handheld shaky one, that's also a good option to do if you want to do that. And those are the 3 stages of the social media pyramid. Because if you have your camera angle set, if you have your thumbnail set, if you have your title set, if you're doing short form content, you are doing exactly what the churches with the largest YouTube channels are doing. And no one else. So let's go back to my first question. Where do you think your church is on the pyramid? Where do you think your church is?
Probably 1.
A 1? Okay. Alyssa?
Yeah. It's
A 1? Yeah.
High 1, low 2.
1. Okay. I would agree. No.
Okay, that's probably like 1, yeah.
Sean?
2.
So what I'm hearing is you can see how they can improve. And because you know what the stages are, you know what they can do to improve, right? Like you can say, hey, if we just started doing this, or hey, if you just started doing this. It's really not that hard. It's really not that hard. And yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome.
So-
Thank you very much. Hey,